It may still boldly go, but this ship usually goes where other ones have gone before. Hi, I'm Joe, and this Star Trek model is the USS Cerritos, the California-class ship that is featured in the TV show Star Trek Lower Decks. Of course, this isn't the big one we're expecting on Black Friday, but instead it's Rebrickable Mach 237734 by DeansBrickDesigns. DeansBrickDesigns, as of the time of this recording, has 36 Rebrickable designs of Star Trek ships, ranging from 65 to 1,265 pieces, and covers ships from all of the eras of Star Trek, including the streaming era from 2017 to now, which to my knowledge hasn't had any official brick models produced by any company. And this model represents the Cerritos from Lower Decks, which ran from 2020 to 2024. A little background if you're not familiar with Lower Decks. There was an episode in the last season of Star Trek The Next Generation named Lower Decks, which had an unusual format for that show because it told a story where the Enterprise is on a secret mission, but shows how the mission is seen from the point of view of lower-ranking members of the crew. A normal episode focuses on the main cast, who are the experienced bridge officers, while this one focuses on the much younger ensigns who were mostly unfamiliar to the audience and are all hoping for a promotion with only peripheral awareness of the secret mission. The episode has a mostly serious tone, but does show some lighter moments of the ensigns feeling awkward around their more experienced superiors. Now fast forward 26 years, and this concept was rekindled as the basis for a new Star Trek series, this one being an animated series set shortly after The Next Generation and played as a straight-up comedy, featuring not only 4 low-ranking officers, but low-ranking officers on a California-class ship, acknowledged as a lower-ranking ship in the Federation fleet. Even the show's poster claims that they rarely go where no one had gone before. The show is a cartoon, but it's definitely for older viewers, and is essentially an exaggeration of the craziness that goes on in the other Star Trek shows. And it seems determined to stuff in as many Easter eggs, references, and cameos as it possibly can. And the more obscure and crazy, especially if it came from the 70s animated series, the more likely it will show up in the show. It even brought back a character from the original Next Generation Lower Decks episode. There was even a crazy episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, where 2 of the Lower Deckers appear in live action as they travel back in time and end up on Captain Pike's Enterprise. But I'm here to talk about this model of the Cerritos, a California-class ship whose specialty is second contact missions. First contact is, of course, reserved for the more important ships to introduce the Federation to new species, while second contact is more of the my people will get with your people kind of mission. But it is still a starship with a saucer, a secondary hull, and nacelles. So let's take a look at this model of the Cerritos. Again, this is a Rebrickable model, but it's not a rebuild of a specific set, but just a combination of a lot of mostly gray and dark gray pieces, along with some mostly blue translucent pieces to simulate the lights, like you see here on the nacelles. I got the parts for this from Bricklink Orders, with the largest order going to one of the newest stores, someone I know a lot of my viewers are familiar with, Jason's Bricks in 5. So I thank him and the other Bricklink sellers for very quickly providing the parts I needed for this model. And speaking of parts, I got an unusual looking one in one of my orders. It wasn't from Jason, but it was this modified 1x2 with bar that has the word LEGO molded horizontally, so it must be an official piece, and it had an indentation in the middle. It doesn't have anything to do with how this was built, but I just thought it was unusual. I'll go ahead and start here with the saucer section, and we'll look at the top here where the saucer looks like a pretty good replication of the Cerritos, the way the main saucer is gray, just like most Federation ships, but it had a dark gray bit here in the back and uses these yellow pieces to make the look of the stripe that was there. The saucer itself is made with a lot of studs on the side construction here, where these are bricks that are sideways and there's a lot of snot bricks in there, and that's what these plates here are attached to. But the saucer is actually built in 4 sections. You've got the front portion here, and then you build one of the sides, and then you build the back portion, which covers a little bit more. And I might have the front and back confused, but you get the idea. And then you attach that on the side. It's got studs on the side over here, and then the same thing on this side. And I even verified the Lego math, and it was supposed to line up. It still is not easy, because once you've got layers upon layers of bricks and plates, things tend to warp just that little bit. And unlike the NX-01 model, where it stabilized once I got the plates on top. A lot of these longer plates don't actually attach the sides to the center part. So the clutch between the side portions of the round part of the saucer and the center part, most of that is actually coming from the studs, and there's not this extra large plate on the top that's kind of holding it together. So that was a little bit challenging. I did have the saucer come apart on me a couple of times while I was building, so that was, well, not very fun. If we look underneath, we have some more detail here. You can kind of see the center of the saucer at the bottom with the clear round tile, but we have more of the yellow striping, just using yellow tiles. And because this is attached with studs on the side construction, we can have studs on the bottom side and on the top, and we don't have any anti-studs exposed here in this model. Here in the back, there's not a whole lot to see. We do have these trans blue pieces here on the side that I don't know if those are supposed to be windows or exhaust vents, but I'm sure if there are any people out there that are experts in the way Star Trek ships are designed, I'm sure they'll let me know, along with these clear tiles here. And we even have a wedge piece in yellow on both sides to help continue the stripe between the top and the bottom of the ship. And then finally, here at the back of the saucer, we've got some red pieces here that I believe would be the impulse engines. Now, one of the more interesting things that I was curious about with this ship was how was it going to support the saucer on these two nacelles, especially since there's quite a bit of distance between the saucer and the nacelles. It's not quite like the USS Reliant, which was a Miranda class, I believe, and was the main ship that Khan took over in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And this is the best representation I have of that ship, where the saucer is practically sitting on top of the nacelles. And you can't see it in the micro model, but the deflector dish is actually over the top of the saucer. But the connection here is just a combination of regular bricks, tiles, and brackets, and some clip and bar connections at the nacelle point, where you can see that there are clips, you can kind of see down there, going into bars on the nacelles. And these are just regular 1x6 tiles connected on one stud, both at top and bottom, and is what kind of allows some posability here, even though the real ship wouldn't be able to do that. But that's one thing I found with this model, is a lot of the connections are very much up to you to get posed in the correct angles because they aren't locked into place. Now, the model is actually surprisingly stable. At least I was surprised, for being connected by only one stud in so many other places. But I think that's where these other brackets come into play and probably help make sure things stay attached and add some stability. The secondary hull here on a California class ship is not very big, and it's just this piece that's kind of suspended between the two nacelles with ball joints here. And this is, I'm guessing, where the shuttle bay would be, and that's probably represented by the clear 1x2 plate there in the back. And then the front would be the more important part, and this is going to be hard to see because of the positioning. It's way under the ship, and I'm going to turn the light on here. And we see the deflector dish, which is not an actual dish at all, but is just shown by using the sides of blue transparent pieces with some yellow transparent pieces in the middle. So I'll turn focus now on the nacelles, which, when following the Rebrickable instructions, is actually what you build first. And this is a lot of plate-on-plate construction, mostly light gray and trans blue, and we're using the sides of trans blue plates to kind of show the blue lights on the side of the nacelles, along with a red one here on the port nacelle, and then some tiles here at the top. The other side is almost the same, except the red and green, which are traditional for port and starboard side of the ship. In fact, we also have that here in the saucer. And that was actually, I think, a mistake in the instructions because it called for a green piece on both sides. And I'm used to red always being on the port side and green always being on the starboard side. But otherwise, the nacelles are symmetrical and accurate. And underneath, to prop the whole thing up, is just a clear round brick and kind of a satellite dish, but As you can see, I'm kind of having a hard time keeping it level, and that's because the center of gravity, I think, changes a little bit based on the angles that you have everything, and because things are connected by ball joints and clips and bars and not firmly held in place. So you do kind of have to be a little bit careful to keep it from getting warped. No pun intended there. But still, I find the model remarkably stable because with all the handling I've done, I haven't actually broken anything off. So that is a kudos to the designer for that. Thank you for watching my video about the U.S.S. Cerritos. This was a fun Rebrickable model to put together, and I'm glad to finally have something that represents the more modern Star Trek shows. Now, of course, the big Star Trek model and subsequent review video is probably still a few weeks away, but I'm looking forward to that. That is most likely to be my next Star Trek video. I've got a couple of other things to show you, and I'm actually creeping up on 400 subscribers, and I'm hoping to be able to do something to celebrate that. But until then, remember, today is a good day to build.